around the world. This is Jim Nico on the Social Network Show with my esteemed co-host, Dr. J. And I think we're now broadcasting proven to 83 countries. So welcome. Here's Dr. J.
Hi, Jim. Today you're going to hear from Mark Fidelman, author of Socialized, How the Most Successful Businesses Harness the Power of Social. So first, Mark, welcome. We're totally thrilled to have you on the show.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me.
I'd like you to tell us, first of all, about the actual research on which you've based your new book, Socialized, and just how you went about gathering your insights, of which there are many.
Yeah, I mean, I call it a labor of love. I really put a lot into this book. I actually probably interviewed over 150 executives for this book. And for the most part, it started off as articles I wrote for Forbes. And then I said, wow, I mean, there's really something here. There's companies that are doing amazing things that other people should know about. And that's when I decided, roughly about 14 months ago, that this needs to be a book. And so I had no idea how difficult it was to write a book. This was my first book. But, I mean, there's probably a few thousand, if not 4,000 or 5,000 hours of research and my time put into this book. I probably went overboard on it.
Did your interviews format evolve over time, or did you have a standardized survey type of question there that you based it on?
It's interesting you asked that. I started off with a standard form kind of questionnaire, but it totally, changed as we move forward. And as I was doing the research for this book, everything was changing anyway. I mean, mobile started to play a more prominent role in what these people are doing. There were other social techniques, other social networks that came about, like Pinterest. So it was a work in progress the entire way. So no, I had to adapt my interview style and questions to the executives as I was going through and writing the book.
Right, that formative evaluation is so important, and I can't imagine doing things any other way, really. So what were some of the insights? There's so many guides to social media out there, but in your book, Socialized, you present some new key concepts that emerged from this research. Could you give us some of the highlights?
Yeah, I mean, it's and I look at this book as not a social media book. It's more like a social business book that uses social media principles and technology and what have you. The key difference is in this book, I talk about what big businesses are doing to become more adaptive and more competitive business. And I'll give you one example. IBM, for example, who some people, at least in our generation, think of the guys that wear the big blue suits. But today, that's completely different. What IBM's doing today, they have 36,000 publishers of content. They're bigger than any media property I know, and they're pushing out content to their partners, their customers, their prospective customers. It's amazing what they're transforming themselves into, which is a media powerhouse. Their next phase, which they're going through now, is to identify subject matter experts within the organization, and they're going to make them famous. So instead of thinking of IBM as a logo, you're going to be thinking as an individual customer of a face or maybe a couple of faces.
Yeah, that's
it's all going to change.
The internal and village.
Yeah, the internal, the digital village.
Digital village.
Yeah.
So that is within a company. Is that a type of crowdsourcing, would you say?
I would say it's more like an internal social network. So think of having your own internal social network just for your organization. And maybe you let partners in, you let suppliers in, but think about all the collaboration, all the learnings, all of the knowledge that you could retain within that organization. Think about how you're networking with people externally on social networks like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Now imagine doing that internally within the organization, how much more powerful you could be. And I'll give you a concrete example real quick. So about a year ago, I'd set up this digital village for the company I was working for. And we were looking for somebody that knew a person at a large company that we were trying to gain their business. And so we started posting this on the internal, what we called a digital village at the time. And all of a sudden, there was an executive that knew somebody within that organization, introduced a sales team to that individual within that company. And about 3 months later, we had a deal with them. Had we not set that up, there's no way that information would have surfaced. There just wasn't going to be a way. And there's a whole discussion around it, and it just moved the process forward quicker.
That makes it subtitle, Businesses Harness the Power of Social, and that is exactly what comes to my mind when I think of harnessing these social connections and the social networks of everyone within the organization. And, of course, sharing knowledge. Boy, that's been a challenge for so long in corporations, nonprofits, governments, everything. So have you come across any key methods that they use to break down the silos that have always existed in organizations.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big cultural change. I like to start with culture. I have a cultural test in there, and I've identified 5 cultures based on all the companies that I interviewed, 3 of which are ready for something like this, 2 of which need help, and I give you an outline as to how you do that. But certainly, you've got to change the culture. And if you're in an organization that's not ready for it, I start with what I call the Trojan horse. So this is where find a group of people that are ready for it. Maybe it's 50 or 100 if it's a large organization, and you prove the concept internally. And you incentivize these people to participate, but you don't let anyone else in the organization, into that social network. And all of a sudden, what you'll find is that the word gets out. It's like a club that you go to with a big red velvet rope around it. Everyone wants to get into it because they're not allowed into it. And then you slowly let people in to that internal social network, and it starts to build on itself. And the culture will change slowly but surely. Now, the one caveat here is executives. You've got to have at least one executive sponsor that's behind it, or else you have some
There's no
crazy
power.
command and control executive that shuts the whole thing down because he's insecure about what this new powerful internal social network can do.
Well, is there a time or a situation in which the better move would be to look somewhere else for a job? Are there some lost causes out there, at least at this point in time? And how would you know?
How would you know? I have a test in the book, and it's pretty specific. Because anything that you try to do on social networks internally is either blocked or frowned upon, or you fear for your job if you post anything, even if it's friendly to the organization. Those are companies that you have to be wary of. Now, I'm not saying it's hopeless, but if you're a person that comes in and wants to be using social networks to be a better employee, to increase your effectiveness, and you're in one of those organizations, certainly there's a large gap that you might not be able to cross. You might grow frustrated.
I learned a concept from PR Newswire, a partner of ours, called the social echo, which is really cool, which I think that, like that test in your book, it's a way to get that feedback, to know where you are. How time sensitive is something like that? I mean, you do something on social networks from your point of view. I mean, being a Forbes writer and all, how quickly do you get feedback?
Almost immediately.
Do you?
I mean, it depends on how well your network's been set up.
Sure.
But if you're incentivizing people and you're making it okay to voice your opinion, it's immediate. Cool. I mean, people want to feel engaged. They want to feel emotionally attached to the organization. I haven't found a better way than a digital village to do that en masse. I mean, there's been a lot of studies done, one by Isaac Getz. You might have seen his TED Talk, where he talks about foxes and he talks about people that are engaged called roosters. He says only 17%.
Roosters?
Yeah,
oh
only
my God,
17% of the organization has roosters on average.
Now, are these the early adopters?
No, these are just people that are engaged with the corporation for one reason or another. Maybe they just love the product. Maybe they find a reason to love the organization.
These are employees
Yes.
we're talking about? Okay.
Roosters. Okay. Are there average roosters or above average?
I don't think there's gradations.
Oh, there's no gradations on the roosters.
I don't know if one gets up earlier than the other.
I can't resist asking about Dr. Natalie Peterhoff, the genius, who I just think is amazing. What do you think of Dr. Natalie in the context? I know she's in your book, but I mean, how is she? She just seems to be so beyond so many people. What do you think, man?
Yeah, no, I think I completely agree. I've really learned a lot from her. And in fact, I was helping to push her into getting a class at UNLV, or I'm sorry, not UNLV, UCLA.
Oh, cool.
In order to start talking about these concepts. Because if you look at the top 25 business schools like I have, there's only 1 or 2 that even have a course on social media, much less social business.
Right.
So these are the people that are graduating, that we're moving into the workforce. They have
it's
no
amazing,
idea.
isn't it? It's amazing.
What's
Absolutely
going on.
essential
it's
to
criminal.
get to reach them.
Yeah.
Like USF has their, they're doing some plays in that. But still, and Dr. Natalie focusing on the executives in there, tying it in with the whole scenario where, what is it,
Making
Jane?
the business case, return on
Making
investment.
the business case. Well, the part where I love the part when she was on the show, and it ties into what you're doing, where when customer service, she got customer service to show CEOs like the negative comments on social networks, and they said, what did they say, Jane? Do you want to say it? Can't you just take this down? Can't you just take these down off social networks?
Right.
Oh, the
Remember?
posts,
Can't we
the
block
negative
those?
posts.
Yeah.
Yes, well, make them go away.
And they're etched in caves, according to Dr. Natalie. But anyway, those are the kinds of things that, like that instant, that echo coming back. So Forbes, that's interesting. Can you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I somehow convinced them to let me write for them.
Cool.
And no, it's a good platform.
Socialized and mobilized?
Socialized and mobilized, yeah. So I essentially talk about what, if we go back to the election real quick, I'll have a post at the end of the year. I usually sum up the year with some post. And I actually had the pleasure of interviewing the team that helped get him elected, at least from the what I call the analyze, socialize, and mobilize aspects of what they did, which was they analyzed their voting base, they had analyzed the middle, and they went and socialized all the messaging with them, and then mobilized volunteer workers to knock on their doors to make sure that they were going to go out and vote. But they took it a step further. They said, okay, Jim and Mark are very similar, so Mark's going to go knock on his door. He's going to tell me on his mobile phone that he did, and he's going to tell me Jim's response, and that's going to be recorded for them. And if he says yes, if Jim says yes, then they send me off to somebody else. But the point is, they're matching people that with similar backgrounds and interests. So
Cool.
Jim wouldn't want to disappoint me. For example.
No.
Yes.
No,
So
absolutely.
they were able to show, and I think it's he was running on a pretty difficult record. They were able to show that in those swing states, it was effectively done.
Wow, cool. So that's nice. And so Forbes is giving you the platform. Of course, that overlaps onto Twitter. We're relating out there. It's fun to have that audience, like that immediate audience, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's powerful feedback. I mean, the same thing can be said for companies. They ought to be looking at it if they're not. Most aren't.
No, it's crazy. I think it was one of our guests, Ron Tarosian, 5WPR, was saying how few CEOs are tweeting, for example.
Right.
And I love it because it keeps me in touch with, for what we're doing, the whole 83 countries out there, the world, keeps me in immediate touch with what's going on. You can feel the pulse through Twitter, especially.
You can.
I think.
But I think
love
half
it.
their job is communication, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
So if they're not communicating on the channels that their customers are tuned
I know,
into, it's a shame.
Well, or they're golfing. I don't know. Are there like Twitter channels on golf clubs or?
There's a Twitter channel and everything. Literally.
I don't know.
Some that you don't even want to know about.
It's fun too that like Jane is head of our research and development and tying in what Barabosi. How do you pronounce that? Mr. Linked. He's
Barabashi.
Barabashi. I knew that. I was just testing your memory. How does he tie into all this stuff? You think? I mean, Mark's right there in the zone.
Yeah, when you talk about connected and networks, the network science behind, I think the social world and media has really propelled that. I mean, it's provided data, huge amounts of data, like even cell phone records before tweets and internet activity. But it's an interesting field in that things don't work the same way other things in nature work. With the bell curve, it's more the power law that there's tremendous numbers at one end and then very few at very few hubs, for example. So yeah, it's fun to see how that all pans out, analyzing it. And I love, one thing I love about your book, Socialized, and we're talking again with Mark Fidelman, who has published Socialized, How the Most Successful Businesses Harness the Power of Social. Love your charts. You've got Summarizing the Business Ages. Mm-hmm. And a new age has started in 2010 that you call and identify as the social. 1990 to 2010, you called the information age. So what is different about those two? What happened around 2010 that you feel propelled us in a whole different age of business?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. We reached a tipping point in 2010 where there were more people on social networks that were communicating with one another and communicating with brands than were being reached by television, radio, some of the traditional means. So now that the world's changed, and I would say 80% of the corporations do not realize this, and they're not taking advantage of it, but it changed to more of a social context. And if you're not participating in the social context, and if you're not coming up with strategies to reach out to people, your potential customers, prospects, even partners and suppliers, you're going to fall behind. They already are. If you look at IBM, for example, IBM absolutely transformed their business from selling boxes to a services organization. If you look at the last 2 years, their market cap, it has grown twice as much as the entire value of HP. Wow. The entire value. Now they have similar amounts of employees, 400,000 employees. HP hasn't made the transformation. Clearly they haven't. IBM has, and you can start to see the results. We'll see more of this going forward.
Would it be fair to say that they become socialized to use it?
They are a prime example I use in the book. They absolutely have, and they're the ones promoting it probably the most I see out there.
They're going to love this. They're going to love this.
Oh, they already have.
I know. I can feel it.
You refer to soft skills.
Yes.
That within the organizations, they have to encourage and develop even soft skills, which sounded a little almost like they're born and not made, but you must have some thoughts that it's possible to turn and well, you describe what is a person with soft skills. What are those skills?
I think communication skills, interpersonal skills, and I actually think social networks, especially these digital villages, and we've lost that feeling, worldwide. We all grew up, before the 19th century. We all grew up in villages, in some respects. Some were still in cities, but we've lost this connection, this interpersonal connection with people, these emotional connections with people. And back then, they used to get feedback from one another saying,
You're a jerk, Doc. Stop
exactly.
acting like that.
Right now, you could be a jerk, and you might never know you're being a jerk. And on social networks.
boards.
I know when I'm being a jerk. but I'm not the typical guy out there. I'm not a rooster.
Anyway,
I'm not a typical rooster.
So what kind of things do you suggest to these companies to help their employees develop these soft skills?
Yeah, I mean, there's I have a very good friend of mine named Kari Anderson. She talks about how you communicate better with both on social networks as well as just between each other in meetings. I think we've lost that. But I think social networks, ironically, help people offline because they're giving feedback to people online, where people typically wouldn't feel comfortable giving you feedback in a setting like we're in now. On social networks, it's much easier.
Very nice, very nice. What is the most, I have to ask this question, it's my most famous question. What's the most fascinating thing you're encountering right now in your work or out there on the networks, or it could be astonishing thing,
Well, I mean,
what's fascinating you?
What's astonishing to me is where celebrities used to have and own the influence. If a celebrity endorsed a product or service or what have you, they get instant visibility. You have people that coming out of nowhere that are developing celebrity within their own industry that are starting to endorse products.
Isn't that nice?
It is nice.
Like that Delta Airlines, the guy with the guitar, and Disco, who I think Disco is, there's a parakeet named Disco. I mean, it's just like, it's amazing. Yeah, it's how the average person can get that.
It
evens the playing field.
It really does. If you have expertise now, and only now, are you able to surface that globally and say, I'm an expert in this. Everyone else is saying I'm an expert in this. So companies are now searching out these people, bringing them into the fold, paying them, or giving them free product or something like that. And they've got a new way of monetizing their knowledge and expertise. It's amazing what's happening. And we're just at the beginning of this.
Yeah. And Dino was on, Dino Dogan. He loved the name.
Yeah.
You got to, he wins the name award. Dino Dogan was on with Triber. He's interesting. Cutting edge guy. So it's nice how we met you via Dr. Natalie, which is not, and that's fast. You notice how, in one day we were talking?
That's right.
I mean, it's just so from Twitter to the email to the phone, like lightning, What do you think, Jane, about the idea of having something social versus antisocial? Is there an antisocial network out there? You're the research.
Well, if you read the comments, many folks on there are pretty antisocial.
I have to say, I get in an argument with somebody on Facebook every day, and they either shut me off or they start using the ad hominem, calling names and stuff like that. I'm like, wait a second. We can agree to disagree. You don't have to go to the ad hominem or shut somebody out.
Exactly. Well, you know what? Thanks for coming on the show, man.
My pleasure.
You were great, and I love the book and the fact that we're out on the networks helping each other. And I mean, isn't that's the original spirit, right?
It is
of the villages and the tribes. So please stay in touch with us. Let's we want to collaborate. Okay.
Good.
Okay, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.